Viewer discretion is advised. Your fave will be criticized.
That's Chan.
That's Chris.
And welcome to CCTV, the nonstop pop show.
And today we're going to talk about the queens of K-pop, SNSD. Sooyoung, aka SNSD, aka Girls' Generation, aka GG, has confirmed a 2022 comeback with all 8 members just in time for the band's 15th debut anniversary. And in light of this news, fans are losing their collective minds over the news that Girls' Generation will not only return with a new single, but an album to commemorate this occasion. And that's really exciting.
Yes. I'm super excited. Girls' Generation, I mean, they were the biggest girl group when I got into K-pop for sure. Right. So I'm excited to see what they do. What's your history with SNSD?
Now, the way I got into them is really interesting because I was into Wonder Girls first. And so when they came out here and did like So You Think You Can Dance and Wendy Williams, I was like, yes, this is amazing. So I was really slow into them. And I think at the time, Wonder Girls was really killing it until they went to America and then G came out. So I had gotten into G and I was like, oh my God, how cute is this song? And I think G is one of those songs in K-pop that is really quintessential K-pop. Everyone thinks of G when they think of K-pop. I mean, it gets covered to this day. But yeah, I didn't realize like how big they were at the time I got into K-pop. But yeah, they're freaking huge. I mean, what about you? I know you've seen them in SM Town, Lucky.
Yes, so that actually is how I got into them. Because actually when I went to SM Town, I really only knew SHINee for the most part. Wow. I kind of, and I knew Boa. But everyone else, like I knew their names, but not really their music. But I listened to everything like in preparation for the show. And so, I kind of got thrown into the Girls' Generation situation.
To the wolves.
I had done a little research I was interning at Interscope, actually. So I had done a little research for them when they were like thinking about signing them back in 2011, I think, right?
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so that was kind of my only history with them, but really was seeing them at SM Town, and that kind of started my more deeper dive into their discography. But I've definitely followed them throughout. I went to Tiffany's solo show a few years ago here and actually met her after the show, backstage, which is cool. I'll put the picture right here if you're watching the video. But yeah, so I'm really excited that they're back. But let's talk about first their history before we do some predictions. So, SNSD, aka all those things that you said earlier, are known as the nation's girl group. And by nation, we mean Korea, not America. So they debuted on August 5th, 2007 with the single Into the New World, but they rose to huge fame in 2009 with the single G that you mentioned earlier, and that claimed the top spot on KBS's Music Bank for a record-breaking 9 consecutive weeks, and it was Melon's most popular song of the 2000s, the entire decade of the 2000s. So let's first talk, I mean, you mentioned that G, how prolific it is, but listening back, what do you think of it now, like in the context of K-pop and the way it is now?
Oh my God, this song, I don't know if it would actually survive. Not even trying to be funny, but like the whole soundscape is like, being like girl crush and being really tough. Like love songs are not doing what they used to do unless they're like a ballad or something like that, which is so funny because these girls were promoted as the girls next door. But yeah, like, I mean, back then it was okay to kind of have this kind of song, to have this many members as well. It was kind of shocking. And even now listening to it, I think, this is a solid song. I mean, like for them to have 9 members and each girl get a line is kind of impressive. And there's a lot of harmony. But again, that kind of goes back to SM, like actually featuring harmonies for a girl group. So yeah, I mean, has it aged well? I think so. It's one of those bubblegum pop songs that people are like, oh my God, like really? But yeah, it's aged. I mean, think about Baby One More Time. Think about NSYNC's like Bye Bye Bye. Songs like that, you're like, it's kind of immature. Like only little girls and little teeny boppers know it. No, we're like really getting close to our 30s, in our 30s / a lot of our fans, and we are still like, yes, G, baby. We're out here dancing, So what about you? I mean, for you to be like into SHINee and then get introduced to Girls' Generation, like did did it impact you the way it impacted everyone else? Or are you kind of like, okay, this is cute. Did it take something else for you to get into them?
Yeah, well, I think, I'm not hugely into the cutesy thing anyway, so I don't, I didn't love that, but honestly, this is one of those songs that just, it's so great and catchy that it just supersedes all of that. Because I think this is one of those where you need the video or the dance. You need the performance of it, because once you know the dance, all the, and I love the spelling of the G. All of that. Like, once you have all of that, it makes it can't leave your head,
Yeah.
And
it's
so,
at that point.
yeah, and it's so catchy that it's just hard not to like it, I think.
So true. Yeah,
but it's definitely not a song. Like, I feel like if you showed this to someone who didn't know K-pop at all, it'd be very jarring, for sure.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
It's kind of just one of those songs that probably wouldn't be something that you introduce people to, but they do have other songs in their catalog. Like, one of my favorite songs by them is like Hoop. I love the James Bond kind of theme. Like, there's something about 2000, yes, with the gun. There's something about 2000s pop, K-pop, just UK Britpop that is just so different. Like, people are taking risks conceptually, sonically. It just was more interesting. And songs like Hoot, Genie, oh my god, even their Japanese singles, Honey, don't get me started.
Galaxy Supernova is the one. But yeah, I think you just mentioned Genie. I'd actually say Genie is probably one of my top Girls' Generation songs, because that it's still cutesy, but there is like an underlying sexiness to it.
Oh yeah.
And so I find that dynamic a lot more fun than like the pure cutesiness of G. All right, so we do have to mention, first off, their singles and albums actually did consistently very well throughout their career. They kept breaking their own sales records. The music video view numbers were insane, because they were really at that time when YouTube was, really helping to spread the Hallyu wave, and they really did set the trend for all the girl groups at the time. You have to keep in mind that this was second gen. There were a lot less companies, so a lot less groups in general. So they were really leading the pack. It was kind of them and 21 really at the top, right?
Yes.
And it was kind of those two kind of very extreme sounds, and then kind of everyone else doing kind of a derivative of either one in a way. So they really are just so prolific. I think if you ask any of the current girl group members that are active right now, they'd all list SNSD as a big influence for them.
Yes.
Either as children or at least as like trainees. I'm sure they were forced to learn some of these songs some way or another, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, even with Into the New World, it's become like an anthem for the feminist movement there. So when they have marches, they'll play. So everyone knows it. You can't really deny their impact. And even if you look at Twice now, there's the same silhouette, the same impact, but they had the power of DSP and YouTube. DSP being digital streaming platforms, y'all. But yeah, they had that kind of power behind them, that extra battery in their back. But I mean, before SNSD, we had not seen this many girl group members, except maybe in J-pop. So you were really getting a lot of firsts, or just a lot of significant moves by SM and Girls' Generation. Their singles and albums, as Chris said, were absolutely just amazing. So we're not just saying it to be hyperbolic or exaggerating. They were, like he said, leading the pack. They were the nation's girl group for a reason. Like, if you had their name on anything, people were showing up, people were spending money. And eventually they actually did team up with Teddy Riley, right? For the Boys release. And it was like a TRX track. And that single was The Boys.
Bring the boys out, Girls' Generation, make you feel the heat. And we're doing it, we can't be beat. Bring the boys out.
And this was their first English release, and SNSD with another major American label, Interscope, which had, Wonder Girls were under Hollywood Records at the time. So it wasn't like a huge label, because Hollywood Records was Disney, that's the Jonas Brothers. But Interscope, what was that? That was like
one of the majors. Yeah.
But yeah, they were the first girl group to perform on an American late night television show, which is David Letterman. And boy, oh boy, I remember staying up to watch it. and watching them squeeze in this small enclave of a space and not hitting anything. Oh my gosh.
If you have never seen the boys' performance on David Letterman, please do. We'll put the link in the description because it is so good and it was a huge deal. Like now, whenever people appear on things, it's like, oh great, like they're on Kelly Clarkson, like they're on Steve Colbert, they're on all this stuff, and it's like kind of normal now, right? But back then, it was really tough to get this much visibility for K-pop.
Totally.
On American media. So it was really awesome, and they killed it. They killed it. It was a tiny stage, live mics, live band, new remix with a new dance break. They really pulled it out. Yeah.
It looked so good. I remember because Regis Philbin was there and Bill Murray were there. So you have all these old dudes on stage watching them, and they all legs for days, hair flips for days. It was really crazy because the girls, they did all their choreography, and they had the host and his guests, the band behind them, and then some weird like little shelf area. They gave you full out. They gave you look. They ate up a little bit. I was like, go ahead, girls. I was really impressed. And I think the next day they actually did do, was it Regis and Kelly the next day? Well, they did a daytime show the next day. And they're like, oh, your English is so good. And Tiffany and Jessica were like, we're from California. That's usually the conversation, right? Your English is just so good. Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. So actually shortly after The Boys, they also released I Got a Boy, which it's also extremely, extremely influential. Because at the time, K-pop was still very classic in its structure, in its song structure. It was still very much based off of Western kind of late or early 2000s pop music, right? So it was standard verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, the great and classic pop formula. I Got a Boy was the first song that was this kind of Frankenstein track where where the switch ups just almost don't make sense.
Stop. Let me put it down another way.
You have different BPMs and you have completely different songs, basically, just put together in one. And we still do this to this day now. That's how most K-pop songs actually are put together now, right?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, this whole like Bohemian Rhapsody approach to it was really interesting because I think a UK artist had actually written the song. I think Katie Tiz or something. I forgot her name. But yeah, Katie, I will say that. She had done it. So I had heard the original version of it. And it's so funny because you're just like, wow, how did I Got a Boy come from what she was saying? Like she was just talking a bunch of crap. She was like, yeah, I'm that girl. Kind of just Western style lyrics, right? So this song, I remember when I first heard it, I was like, oh my God, because I think Nappy Tabs had choreographed it. So that's Napoleon and Tabitha, for those who don't know. I was like, and at the time it was like, So You Think You Can Dance and ABDC, America's Best Dance Crew, and their names were thrown around a lot because that's how a lot of people who didn't know these choreographers came to know them. So they worked with them, and I'm like, oh my God, I have to learn this choreography. I know the choreography to this stinking day. I refuse to let it go. And the best thing about this song is that even though it's a remake, and I don't think we talked about it really in our remake video, but they added their SM kind of feel where we had a former member, Jessica, say, bring it back to 140. And you're like, what the heck happened at 140? So you go back, it's the part of the song that was like the little EDM switch up. Like this song is, I don't even know how to describe it because I'm like, if it was released now compared to like a aespa's Next Level or like, sorry for sighing, y'all.
Yeah.
Or Savage. Yeah, it's like, would it be as jarring? Would it be as strange? Like, I don't know why this song worked. I don't know how it worked. I don't know how this song became as like accepted more so than like, an NCT mashup or like a aespa's mashups kind of song. It's so interesting.
Well, I think it's interesting because they were at a point in their career where they could pretty much release anything and it would do decently, right? I think they were lucky in a sense that they were at that point in their career, again, with less competition, et cetera, et cetera. And I think people were ready for a risk at that point also. right? So
Yeah,
I think
I mean, yeah.
it was just different at the time. It is hard to think like if this was released now, what would we think of it?
Right.
Because at that time, people listened to it because it was so weird. But if it was released now, we wouldn't think it was as weird, right?
Right. It's interesting.
So
Very
so
interesting.
it's very hard to think of it objectively, I think, for us
Yeah.
because we experienced it all in real time.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really hard because personally for me, listening to like Savage and other songs that are like this Frankenstein thing,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there's almost a line of how different each section can be. And I think with I Got a Boy, there was still something underlying. I don't really know how to describe it.
Oh my
But
God,
there
you're
was
right.
something underlying between each section that did at least sonically and like feeling wise keep it cohesive.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that about some
like an
S-Fuzz
in-mix.
tracks or then mixed track. Yeah.
Oh man, that's tough.
But I don't know if I'm
It's so
biased.
tough.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh my God. We might have to we might have to do a video about it. But yes, definitely drop a comment below if you liked I Got a Boy, but you don't like the newer songs, or if you do like the newer songs, but you think I Got a Boy was a hot mess. Please, I would love to know what other people have to think about that.
Yeah, I agree.
And also
Yeah.
if you've made and if you made it this far, definitely subscribe to CCTV, where we have lovely pop discussions like this all the time. So make sure you turn on that notification bell as well. Just moving on and just kind of, fast forwarding a little bit. Of course, we all know that the 9-member group then became a 8-member group because Jessica, had to leave because of some other drama. But I think their last single that they released was All Night Holiday.
Yeah, it was a
on that.
double.
Yeah,
for their 10th
that double
anniversary.
85.
Yeah.
Right.
우리 holiday 너와 나만을 위한 하루가 될 수 있게 정해진 건 없어 흐름지는 대로 가자 honey
Not for nothing. That didn't do as well as I think SM was expecting, or they even cared to do, because I feel like they only performed it like once or twice, and then they were shuffled off. Like, contract's over, bye-bye. So
Yeah.
I feel like...
I think it was one of those weird times where it was contract negotiation time and some of the members already knew they were leaving. So there was an aspect of the actual members themselves being kind of over it and just like, okay, let's just do this one more time and like whatever. And also SM probably not wanting to do the most because they knew the members were leaving. So I think it was that dynamic. But yeah, commercially, we did kind of just do a quick scan of their sales in preparation for this. And their peak in Korea sales-wise was, I believe, the boys era. We do have to note that this is also the transition between physical and downloads and streaming, like all of that, because it was really during that kind of early 2010s when illegal downloading became so big and bad, right? So general sales were down over the entire industry, but I think it is safe to say that the buzz around SNSD was kind of dying. Those last couple of years. And so you could kind of feel that the members were ready to move on. They were only doing like one comeback a year at that point anyway. I think it was time. I think them ending it at 10 years. I mean, Little Mix, right? Little Mix just did the same thing. And I think that's a long life for a group.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, for real, especially in K-pop. Usually 7 is like that year people go, oh no, they're done. But it's true. 7 years, 4 years if you're lucky. But 7 years is usually was kind of cuts off, which is interesting. And I mean, granted, SM is known for their very long, extensive, decade-long contracts. But for them to have such a long-winded, not long-winded is not the right word, but for them to have such longevity in their careers and then still be able to at least hold on to some type of numbers in the advent of the DSPs and the downloads and whatnot is actually pretty impressive. But yeah, so after they kind of went their separate ways, we did get OGG, which is like a 5-member unit of Taeyeon, Hyoyeon, Yuri, YoonA, and then that was it. And we had some other solo projects. And Sunny, I'm so sorry. Sunny, girl, I'm so sorry. I liked you. I'm so sorry. But yeah, so, they've all been kind of doing their own solo thing. Like, so no one's been like a quote unquote flop, that no one's hit their flop era. So it's interesting to see how they are separately.
Yeah, I
right?
would say SM usually does a pretty good job. For the most part, there are exceptions, but they do a pretty good
Yeah.
job of making sure each member does have a way to make a name for themselves outside the group.
Right.
And
Right.
I think they did a really good job with SNSD. I would say every single member in Korea, at the very least,
Yeah.
they have a name out there. Like
Yeah.
K-pop fans know each member. And you can't really
Totally.
say the same with most other companies, I would say. So,
Yeah. Some people go back to the convenience store to work, and I'm like, damn.
oh my
So
gosh,
yeah,
yes.
they kind of
Did you see
yeah.
that Eli from UKISS? He's like working in like a packing factory now. I was like, oh.
Getting into the solo jam.
Uh-huh.
We have, of course, we're going to talk about all members because no matter what anyone says, Jessica was included in SNSD history.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, yeah, we're still going to talk about her because she was part of the group for a majority of the years up until their last about 3 albums, right?
Yeah.
So yes, just to start it off, we have Taeyeon. I think one of the, I think she's the most well-known member. Because she is literally the most active. She was the leader of SNSD, and she is actually still signed to SM Entertainment, and she has released 3 successful studio albums and has also taken part in the first project group, Girls on Top, for Got the Beat, which is SM's Supergirl group, which is like a spinoff of SM. And she's also made a name for herself as a variety show star, which is great because you do see her everywhere. She is essentially just holding it down. She is SM's Wonder Woman. Like, you know who she is. She's still there. I mean, I can't think of any other place that would be able to kind of facilitate that kind of talent. I'm not saying no other company could do it, but what she's done with INVU recently, like, I don't think she would have gotten that elsewhere.
날 버리고 날 잃을수록 넌 반짝이는 irony So I envy you
There's something about her staying with SM just made sense. Like, I don't see her anywhere else. And on top of that, I mean, if I had so many great parts of the songs, I wouldn't leave either.
Yeah, she definitely got lucky with that. And I think she was a good leader as well from kind of what I've seen through the years. But yeah, she's super, super talented. Her voice is quite recognizable. I think,
totally.
it's one of those things where you hear one of her songs and it's like, oh, that's Taeyeon. And I
She
think
became
that's
a
a very
standard.
good, that's a very good characteristic to have in such a saturated market. I will say I'm not a huge fan of all of her solo stuff in general. I love INVU, but overall it does feel like she kind of just chases trends. She doesn't really have her own sound, but as an overall pop star, she's very talented. Her voice is good. She kind of knows she's a good performer, very natural performer. So yeah, I'm glad she's continued to stay successful, but we kind of knew she would kind of, by staying with SM, we kind of knew that her solo stuff would continue to get, the big push that it has.
Yes, exactly. And as I mentioned, I think she became kind of like the vocal standard. I mean, if you listen to Wendy, she gets notes that Taeyeon would be singing. If you listen to aespa doesn't really have a Taeyeon kind of sound. They're kind of going back to the older way they used to sing with like SES, with like Bada and things like that. So it's interesting to kind of see how Taeyeon was kind of like the standard for a minute because she had a little bit of soul in her voice, and so it's interesting to see how she has grown from someone who I thought couldn't dance really. No offense to her, but Girls' Generation's choreography was never like challenging, right? So it's cute. It's kind of like, we're here posing a little snap here.
Yeah.
But it was never like difficult. So when she started doing Dancing in Y and other things like that, I was like, oh, she's getting it. So it's nice to kind of see her still keep up.
Yes.
Even now with like, Got the Beat.
Yeah.
Or Girls on Top, excuse me.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, girl, you got it. She's not like a standout dancer. She's not amazing. But it's nice to see that she hasn't like conform. I don't know how to describe it, but she doesn't seem like she's like reaching. She doesn't feel like she's trying to be young and trendy, like get with the kids. It's like, if you like my stuff, thank you. If you don't, I still have a whole plethora of fans.
Yes, I have nothing to prove anymore, which is always a good spot to be in. Yeah.
Exactly. And up next we have Sunny.
So Sunny is also still signed to SM Entertainment, and she is known as the mood maker of the group. And for solo activity, she's done quite a variety. She's done musicals, some voice acting, variety shows, and also was a radio DJ. So Sunny, she's so cute. right? She's
Yeah.
like the cute one. She always stood out to me in all the performances and stuff, just visually. She was memorable.
Yeah.
And she always seemed to be having a good time.
Yeah.
And there was, and,
Yeah.
and I think she kind of wears her emotions very, I don't
On
know.
her
She
face.
shows her
Yeah.
emotions very easily, I guess, just because if you don't, she's not feeling it, like you can totally tell.
Yeah.
And there definitely are examples of that. But she's definitely not my favorite vocally, so it kind of makes sense to me that she never really pursued a solo career because it is quite a limited tone.
Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
interestingly enough, I think after Jessica left, I noticed that she was taking a lot of Jessica's notes. I haven't really paid that much attention where I can say, yeah, this part, this song, this, but I remember her singing a part and I was like, oh, Jessica was singing that. So in the sense of like whose tone like comparable to, like in the sense of like going down the list of like, oh, if she can't sing this part, who could sing it? She would typically sing some of Jess's parts. I remember her standing out a lot to me in The Boys when she cut her hair because I was like,
Ooh, she looked
that's
good.
a look. Yeah, I was like, because they're in a group where they're very pretty, they're very, you know, but for them to kind of go for this more chic, more, how you say, like, Vogue magazine editorial
Yes.
style, her hair is short. And I was like, oh my God, that's a risk. And I love a girl who can rock a short haircut. If you can do that, honey, I'm looking at you. And she was selling it. She was like, this is my style. I like this. So I enjoyed her. But yeah, you're right. In the sense of like seeing her do a solo thing, I don't think she would do anything except maybe like commercial films, like CFs, things like that. So I think she figured out what she needed to do at the right time. And it works for her because she's a good personality. For sure.
Yes.
For sure.
And I don't speak Korean, so I've never heard her as a radio DJ. But from the interviews and stuff that I have heard of her, like I feel like she's perfect for that. Yeah. So
Yeah.
That's interesting that she stayed with SM.
Right.
But all right. Yeah.
Oh, I wonder what that's about. Yeah. Ooh, questions. And speaking of staying with SM, this next one did not. Tiffany. Tiffany Young or Tiffany Kwong. I'm not sure how you all were introduced into her, but if you are someone who met her when she was solo, congratulations, because she managed to escape the SM dungeon. Not saying it was a dungeon, but strangely enough, Tiffany wasn't exactly one of the favorites in Korea, which is unfortunate. She was one of the lead vocalists of the group, and she's now a successful solo artist who has released a number of English tracks and even won Best Solo Breakout in the 2019 iHeartRadio Awards.
Hop on the roof, dancing for you, under a million stars.
And most recently, she was in the South Korean stage production of Chicago and will also be making her acting debut on a JTBC series. So that's good for her. Vocally, I know who she is, but her technique has always been kind of like, I always felt like either the song is too high or it's just like, ugh. I was like, girl, she's not someone who can dance and sing well at the same time, but I always looked at her because she always had this beautiful eye smile. She's known for her eye smile. Every time she smiled, those eyes turned into little rainbows. And I remember people saying, I smile, I smile. And it was always going back to Tiffany, no matter what. It was always, her eye smile is so pretty, you know, and I forgot what her like, when she introduced herself, her insa, it was something princess, like sparkling prince. It was something like that. And I can see why. She would smile and her whole face was just, hi, I'm Tiffany. And it's just like, oh my God, how cute is she? And she's another English speaker of the group. So it was nice to kind of have her during like their English or American promotions. Because she could be like, yeah, you know, we're a 9-member group, we're a girls' generation, and kind of take on like a pseudo leader position along with Jessica. So as you mentioned, you've seen her live.
Yes,
and solo.
I did go to the Magnetic Moon tour here in the US. And I enjoyed it. I think some of her English tracks are really good. Actually, I still do love the one SM solo track that she did, I Just Wanna Dance.
I just wanna dance the night away. 두 눈을 감고 dance in the moonlight.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, I think she's one of those. I think she's a good performer. And she's improved a lot through the years.
Yes.
I think if you watch kind of the first SNSD performances, she didn't really stand out, but I think she's one of the most improved for sure. I do think it's interesting that she is now back in Korea. You know, it
Yeah.
kind of just shows how tough it is. You know, it doesn't matter how
Out
big
here.
you are somewhere else, but you go here
Yep.
and it's a fresh start and there's so much competition. And so, you know, the fact she's had to kind of go back to Korea is interesting. I'm curious what her plans are next for solo material, since it seems she's kind of taken a break from releasing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think she is one that does have a very memorable face as well, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I enjoy her. I enjoy little Tiffany.
Yes, so the next member we're going to talk about is Hyoyeon, who is the main dancer and is, again, currently still signed to SM Entertainment. And she has released music as DJ Hyo, or simply HYO, right? Or Hyo.
Yeah, just Hyo. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hyo.
And her music is primarily focused on EDM.
You know what I deserve.
And she, along with Taeyeon, was also featured as a member of Got the Beat, or the Girls on Top unit of Got the Beat.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's an interesting one for sure. She is definitely a great dancer. She
Yeah.
had a lot of moments to shine during Girls' Generation songs, not vocally, but definitely performance-wise. Her
Yes.
voice definitely is one of the more limited ones, and it's it's like a huskier tone, a lower tone, which I guess just doesn't really fit some of the really girly stuff that SNSD was doing. And I remember reading interviews where she was like, "I hated Into the New World, like I hated you know," and I'm like, well, that makes sense, you know. But yeah, she's an interesting one. Her solo music isn't for me, but I have to admit she was one of the ones I never would have pegged for doing the solo thing. And
totally. Yeah.
she's definitely been pushing. She has been consistently releasing stuff and performing on the music shows and doing the full promotions and things. So good for her. I'm glad that SM is giving her the backing, because you know the worry every time they renew for things like this is that they end up in the dungeon afterwards, right? And so they luckily have not done that with her, and it seems she's happy and thriving, so that's great.
Yeah, you know, I always thought she was really feisty. Just the way she looked, I think it's just her face was always very just like kind of fierce.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always been that way, but I always liked it because she has like this like burning passion in her eyes. Like if you look at her back in the day, it's so funny. And then when I hear like little stories about her, I remember she had not gotten into a fight, but she had essentially defended herself against this man who was bothering her. I was like, I like this girl. She's always kind of had just some oomph about her.
Yeah.
So I think she kind of added that oomph to the group. Because they were very much like red legs and hair and hips.
Yes.
And a clap, clap, clap. You know, but
Yeah.
she was always like, here's my moment. I'm a popping.
I'm a whack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One time she was popping, whacking so hard that her freaking ponytail came out. I was crying. She was giving it her all. She whipped her hair and the whole weave said bloop, bloop on the floor. So yeah, I mean, I did not peg her as one of the people who would come out solo vocally.
Yeah.
Even with her kind of doing the singing rapping thing, I just I don't know. I'm not a fan of it. Like the song Deep, I feel like it could have been so much better. But just this is lacking a little bit of energy. It doesn't mean she's not talented. It's just that with all the people who wrote on that song, I think she deserved a little bit better. But she did sing in the bridge, did not sound bad. So she has been working, you know? And it's great to see that she's still kind of dancing. Not even kind of, she is still dancing.
Oh yeah,
you know?
she's killing it. Yeah.
Exactly. It's so nice to see her like popping and locking and polka dotting like she used to, because it's you can tell that she loves it. It's just that maybe she knows that she's not as vocally talented as this, or you know, maybe she's not as conventionally beautiful as like a Sooyoung or a YoonA. Like she knows, and so she does what works for her. I've never seen her try hard to like, I'm gonna make a ballad. We're never gonna get that from her. Like,
I hope not.
You know, she you know, she knows her lane. She knows her lane, and I respect her completely for that. And another person who was dancing in the group was Yuri. She's another vocalist and also, like I said, a dancer for the group. Maybe not as well known by like non-fans, but yeah, she was known as the Black Pearl because at the time her skin was just so tan, which was atypical and.
But okay, yes.
It's a weird thing. I don't know if it's like a Korean thing or not. I'm not sure. My students say some weird stuff to it. I'm like, I know you don't mean anything by it, but we need to You need to know. So yeah, I mean, her tan skin at the time was kind of atypical for a girl group just like this one, because when you think of fairies, you think of just lightness and whiteness, and then all of a sudden you see this girl who just happens to be tan, doing her thing and just being in this group. But she was always pretty like stable. Like she's one of the members who were there, consistent. She had some solo tracks like Into You. I did enjoy that song, and I actually was inspired by the way she set up her Into You music video with the 2 male dancers and the 2 female dancers for my video, which is so fun because it looks so nice. Like she has something, maybe not it, but she does have talent, and it was nice that SM at least gave her an opportunity to kind of shine and do her thing. And now she's kind of just acting a little bit more. She's released a little bit of music here and there and wasn't OGG like I mentioned. But for the most part, she's just been sticking to the acting. Now, are you familiar with Yuri's kind of just like impacting the group, or?
I'm going to be honest and say that I am not. She's definitely the least memorable member for me. I'm sorry for all the Yuri fans out there. I never remember her. She just isn't that charismatic on stage or in videos for me. And in a group of so many people, you got to have something to stand out. So I mean, good for her that she's, I guess, able to do what she wants to do under SM again. But yeah, I honestly don't have many thoughts on her.
That's totally fine. I know what you mean. Yeah, like I said, she's just a good girl group member. She was definitely like, if you needed something to happen and someone wasn't there, she could do it. You know, sorry, Yuri.
Okay, but moving on to my favorite member of SNSD, Sooyoung. Oh yeah, Sooyoung. So she's one of the main visuals and also one of the main dancers of the group. And since leaving SM Entertainment, she has starred in various Korean dramas and has really made a name for herself in that realm. But yeah, she's also, I think she's the tallest one, right?
Yes,
that's what really stood out to me, I think, the first time I saw them, because she's just like a head above Sunny and a few of the other ones. First off, she's beautiful. And really, very memorable in that way. But honestly, she brings it on stage too.
She does.
She has a great charisma. She's got the smizing down to a T. She knows when the camera's on her, she turns it on for sure. And I think she definitely is a great girl group member. I don't think she would do much solo-wise, personally. And doesn't seem like she wants to either. I don't think singing has really ever been a passion for her, like in that way. But I think she's awesome as a member of SNSD, and they definitely need her. She definitely brings something unique to them.
Oh yeah, totally. I think she brings that kind of like supermodel chicness. Like I think I keep telling you, like when I saw her flip her hair in The Boys, I was like,
oh yes,
oh my god.
Oh yeah, she's at the front, I think, for the David Letterman dance break, right?
Oh my god, yes. And I was just like, I mean, if you didn't know who this group was and you saw her, you'd be like, who is that? Who is that? You know, she just always kind of just stood out in that sense. Even in Hoot, when she had the cute little flipped hair, like she just brings like the sexy lady-like stuff there. Like they all have something about the girl next door, but she was like the hot older sister kind of feel to her. And I think in terms of dancing, she probably is a little bit higher up. Like there's Hyoyeon, and then there is Yuri, and she's somewhere near like 4 or 5. Like amongst the girls, she's somewhere there. Which is kind of tough to see because again, they don't really dance that often. But when they do dance, she's not in the back. Let's just make it really clear. She in the back. So yeah, I've always kind of enjoyed her. I think she is she has some of the best humor in the group too. Like every time I used to watch like little old variety things, she would say some crazy stuff. Like they went to America or somewhere Western, and she's in the back seat talking about, Will Smith? I love Will Smith. He's so handsome. Like she's like, I'm gonna marry that man. Like she was just going off in the back seat, saying the very limited English that she knew, but she knew Will Smith. What's that guy? Will Smith? Oh, he's so handsome. I was like, do you know Will Smith? Yeah, you know Will Smith? As if the person didn't know. So I thought that was kind of fun. And also, like, way back in the day, there used to be a show called Intimate Note, where a lot of groups would go onto the show, and if there were awkward members or like some type of tension in the group, the host would call that crap out, and the members would be able to stand on top of a high point and talk to the one member causing the contention or something like that, or the several members. That would, boy, if that happened now. But yeah, at the time it was funny because she would be the first one. Basically, this is not just about you and the choreography. I'm like, oh my God. So she's always had a personality for sure. Yeah, and I think she was another one of the princesses that oh God, whatever insa she had, the insa, like the I'm princess blah 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 blah, Sooyoung, you know. Yeah, she definitely was a feisty one for sure. On to another visual, we have YoonA. She was the main visual and actually the center of the group, and she actually is still signed to SM Entertainment, and she has also mainly focused on acting activities, including in China, where she's become a huge star out there, which is crazy. And her solo EP, A Walk to Remember, was also one of the highest selling female soloist projects of 2019. 1920.
Yes.
참 편안한 여름밤 말없이 곁에 있어주던
It's very interesting because I feel like I've had a lot of conversations. We were actually talking about it before we were filming this about like the Korean beauty aesthetic. And YoonA is a great example of their quote unquote ideal type. I guess. And I'm not going to like describe it. You can just look up pictures of her, but
yes,
I don't know. There's something about her that I guess they just think is absolutely perfect. And, I think it's interesting when you have that role in a group, because it's kind of like, okay, you're there to like stand in the middle and look pretty and do all the endorsements. But then like musically and performance wise and stuff, you're not really that important.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because if I remember correctly, she didn't really stand out in like interviews and variety shows and stuff either, right? So it's just interesting that she really was the face. Like, there was no overlap there with other parts of the other duties. Like she really was there for that. So that's interesting. So yeah, I would say because I tend to focus more on the performances and stuff like that, she also isn't one that really stands out to me.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Like not for nothing, not to anyone who's like a fan of YoonA, like a specific stan to her, but I mean, if you put up a lineup of a girl group now, she would be considered like one of the like what is that girl's name from IOI? Like there was a member who people were like, why is she in the group? Like she was just an actress kind of style, but she made it into the group over other people. She has that kind of air about her, in my opinion. I never looked at her and thought, oh my God, that girl is the reason I got into the group. And again, that is a standard thing. But yeah, I'm pretty sure she does have something about her. Like she's someone that didn't stand out to me. Like as opposed to Yuri, it would be her I didn't look at because I'm like, I don't get it. I don't see it.
Yeah.
Not saying she's not pretty, but for me, I was just like, she is, I guess, the essential girl next door. Like she's there. And even watching her dance with, I think it was YoonA from 2 p.m. It was just, it was okay. It wasn't like, wow, this is why she is who she is. I don't see it. But if you're a fan of her, definitely educate us and maybe drop some links to like some videos of her being YoonA, being awesome. I'm not saying she's not talented. It's just I was not drawn to her and still am not drawn to this woman. But
agreed. And I honestly had no idea before we prepped this that her solo EP did so well. But yeah, the kind of Korean coffee shop thing is just such a saturated part of K-pop. And so many of these second gen artists that go solo go for that. And they all sound the same. So she sounds great on the track. Like I actually was impressed by it because again, her voice never really stood out to me. But that type of sound also just isn't for me. So I'm not really checking for it.
Checking for it.
Yeah.
All right. And speaking of checking for someone, we have someone who's been really doing her thing. Like she completely, even as one of the main vocalists, or like, even as one of the main vocals in the group, she completely did a whole 180 and said, I'm going to start acting. And that is Seohyun.
Yes. First off, live, she is very stable. She was always the one. I don't think there's any live performance you can find where she doesn't hit the note she's supposed to hit. She is, I think she's probably the most reliable vocally of the group.
Yes.
Arguably more than Taeyeon, I would say, actually. So yeah, she's always stood out to me in that way, and I like her tone a lot. It's a little thicker, and in a group that is quite high-pitched and thin. I think that was important for the dynamic. And like, for example, all her parts in the TTS songs were always my favorite. So yeah, I think vocally she's definitely up there for me.
난 너를 위해 꾸미고 더 예쁘게 널 반짝일래.
So very interesting that she has not released major solo songs. I think that's very interesting. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I said Seohyun. I made a mistake. It's Seohyun. Excuse me. But yeah, with her, I didn't really pay much attention to her at first because I was like, oh, okay, whatever. She's there, you know. Up until Titeso, I didn't pay attention to her at all because I heard her in Twinkle and I was like, oh, wait, she can sing. She can sing. And then also she was on We Got Married, and I think that's when I realized like she actually had like a lot of talent because they had done, I think, Falling Slowly and I think Officially Missing You by Tamia. And her and her spouse at the time. And I thought, oh,
quote
wow,
unquote
cool.
spouse.
Yeah, that would not fly nowadays.
They still do We Got Married, don't they?
No, they canceled that. They
They
tried to do
canceled
something else. Yeah. Woo, messy. But yeah, so she could sing. I think she was one of the members who was actually like musically inclined in the sense of like instrument playing. So yeah, she was pretty consistent, and even watching her act now is so interesting. Like watching her in Love and Leashes, you wouldn't think that her personality would lean a certain way unless you like watched her on Variety or watched her on like little behind the scene things with the girl group. But yeah, no, I enjoy her acting, but I am a little surprised that she has not sat down and was like, let me give you a little ooh baby. I mean, she did have one album, Don't Say No.
Yeah.
She did release that one album. It was good.
Don't say no, oh, oh. 마음이 아파. 너도 그렇잖아. 다시 와줘.
It was good, and I'm confused as to why she didn't continue.
That was still
But
under
yeah.
SM though, right?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if I remember correctly, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the agency she signed to is exclusively for acting.
Whoa.
So
okay,
that's
so she was like,
interesting. Yeah, so
done.
I'm most excited for this upcoming comeback just to hear her again. I'm curious if she's kept up with her vocal training and stuff because, you know, it's been a minute.
No, you're right. It has. No, you're so right. It does make a difference. I would know.
Yeah. So those are all the active current members of SNSD. But as you mentioned earlier, we should talk about Jessica, who is not a member anymore after she left very controversially in 2014. We're not going to get into the drama here, but if you do want us to, we will do a Pop 101 if you want it. So let us know.
Yes.
But since leaving, she has pursued a number of projects, including acting in musicals and television dramas, developing a fashion brand, and becoming a novelist. She wrote the novel Shine and also the sequel Bright. And we actually did a review of Shine as one of our first episodes ever. So if you want to scroll all the way back and see how bad our editing and sound quality and everything was at the time, go check that out because we had an interesting experience reading and discussing this quote-unquote fiction book.
Boy, we should read the second one because that was messier.
I know, we probably should. We just don't have time. But yeah, it's on my list. But yeah, she's currently participating in a Chinese girl group survival program for contestants over the age of 30, which sounds way sadder than I think it is.
Yeah.
But
career's over at 30, apparently. Like, damn.
Yeah, but I believe people, there was a little bit of drama because I think she she must have promoted it or done something the same time that SNSD announced this coming return, reunion. So people were like, ooh, she was doing that to like throw shade. I mean, I don't know.
I mean,
maybe.
At this point, she needs to get whatever she can from this group. Because, I mean, if I was with you for like almost half of my life at this point, I'm going to get some type of recognition. So, I mean, not saying that was her intention, but I mean, she's been through a lot with them, so it's unfortunate that things ended the way they did.
Yeah.
She did release some solo tracks and albums. I think she was with Corey. I don't know how to pronounce it, but she did release some stuff, and then she has Blanc and Eclair as a fashion line. And now, like you said, she's a novelist, so she's fine. She will be okay.
Just spread your wings 저 끝까지 가슴 뛰는 소리가
I do wish that they would patch up any old wounds because this.
It sounds like they're pretty deep though, because it sounds like it wasn't just the drama that led her to leave. Like I think it was like a lot of drama through the years that kind of led
That's
us
terrible.
to it. From all the inside scoop that we don't know if it's real or not, but I'm just gonna assume that it is. But yeah, she's one of those. So she was one of the lead singers of the group actually. So if you listen to the material while she was in it, she's very prominent. She was never my favorite tone though. I personally didn't really miss her when she left. Because she was for sure the worst dancer for me.
She was
the most iconic, I think, thing is in I Got a Boy when all the girls are doing a bunch of hair flips all together and she's on the side just like doing a little nod. She can't be bothered to even do a full hair flip. So that's just one example of
She's wearing
the level of effort that she put in.
My final thoughts on Jessica, though, now that we've all talked about the whole thing, I really do wish her the best. I still wish that things weren't bad. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Aw. It would have been so much fun to kind of see all nine of them like, hey, guys, we done buried the hatchet in each other's backs. We're done. Pushed people off bridges, that we burnt. We're rebuilding. Like, I kind of just want them to make up.
I feel like even if they wanted to, the SM would not allow it.
SM be like, Isuman would be like, you can't come into Kwangya.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, speaking of Kwangya, SM has changed a lot since the last time Girls' Generation released music back in 2017. And one of those things is the now existence of Kwangya, the SM universe. But honestly, K-pop in general has changed a lot in these past years. It's a lot louder and faster and flashier, and it's way more performance-oriented, dance-oriented than it was before. So how do you think the girls are going to be able to fit in the new K-pop landscape and also the new SM sound as well?
Right. So that was my biggest, like, kind of like, like, I don't know how to describe the emotion that I felt for that. But I worry about them because I worry, but I'm also kind of hopeful, right? Because you have all these different sounds that they could kind of attack in a sense.
Yeah.
But there isn't a really girly girl group there except for Red Velvet, and Red Velvet's covering both the electro pop and the electro R&B. So you kind of have that, and then you have aespa, who sounds like NCT, like a spin-off, not exactly like, excuse me. So it's kind of tough. It's interesting kind of hearing what they do individually, and then how do you bring that in, right? Because a couple of them have still been dancing. The rest of them have been reading scripts and kind of just not dancing. So, I mean, they have to come correct at this point. Like coming back with a ballad or something kind of laid back, like Na 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 with GOT7, is not it, right? I mean, even with Shiny, Don't Call Me had more elements of hip hop, and it was definitely a lot more complicated choreography speaking. Than, if not one of the hardest that they've ever had, right? Because they had to keep up and live up to the standards that are now present in K-pop. Like, the showels are there, but like if you want to have a longer career and not get shafted like New East did, or like just kind of get left by the wayside, you have to kind of adapt, right? I mean, the album and the subsequent repackage definitely had the shiny sound, but I think it's safe to say that we were kind of jarred by that. Don't call me. Don't call me. They have never been that aggressive in any, they've had a song like that ever. So with SNSD, it's like, are they going to go for something kind of fierce? Are they going to go for something like touch? Little touch. Give me a little touch. They could do that. Yeah. They give us a nice little sexy model moment. They could do that. But will the sound be up to par with what's happening now? What's SM's doing now?
And also live up to their old material as well. Because that's always the risk when you do a reunion, right? Is the song as good as your old stuff. So it's interesting. You mentioned Red Velvet, right? And kind of their last album was more very, very ethereal, kind of whimsical.
Yeah.
Then you have
Yes.
Esbaz, who's doing like the really hard hitting. I don't know how else to describe it. It's like it's just super strong EDM-esque.
electro
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
And SNSD definitely can do neither of those things, I don't think.
No.
Lil Touch
No.
was fun, but like there wasn't
Yeah.
anything unique or special about it. You could give that to any girl group, and that would be
Yeah.
a fine B-side, sorry.
Yeah.
It'd be
Yeah.
interesting to see if they go for... Yeah, I think I agree. Like, do they go for fierce?
Mhm.
I don't know, because most of them can't really do it well, to be honest.
No.
Like, Catch Me If You
No.
Can was cool. I think
Yes.
that'd be an interesting like idea to kind of go towards,
Yeah.
but that also wasn't a lead single for them. That was also just like a Buzz
Yeah.
B-side track, right?
Right.
And
right.
so I don't know. And then All Night and Party and those last few songs in that era also like they
Yeah.
didn't do that well, right? So
Not
clearly
at all.
them trying to recreate something more like that also wouldn't really work. So
Yeah. Yeah.
part of me kind of hopes that they do like another two A-side thing where one is kind of crazy and at a risk.
Yeah.
And then one
Yeah.
is maybe just a sweeter track that is in line with the Lionheart-esque
Yeah.
kind of idea.
Yeah.
Because I thought Lionheart was perfect for them. It was a little more
Yeah.
mature, but it still kind of harkened back to kind of the cutesy sound a little bit.
Totally. Yeah.
So I would love them to do kind of the two again.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
without doing the
Yeah.
extreme, because if they try to go too fierce, most of them can't do it. Like it's
Right.
just
You know
not
what's so
genuine. So
You're so
Yeah.
right. Because they did You Think. You Think actually wasn't bad.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
now I think about it. You Think wasn't bad. Like,
Yeah.
it wasn't bad in certain sections. And other parts, I'm like, ooh, that's a little weird. Like, Seohyun's part was cool. The rap section was cool because you had Sooyoung and Hyoyeon kind of just doing their thing and rolling. They were throwing it back. They were throwing it back, okay?
Mhm.
But will they do that hip-hop kind of poppy kind of sound?
Yeah.
You know? And I mean, now SM Town has been gentrified into Kwangya. Do they still have a place to live in this new universe? You know, at this point, for lack of a better word, SM Town has been gentrified into Kwangya. I can't stand Kwangya, but are these girls going to be forced to become citizens of it? You know, they're not a BoA where they have musical like influence over what happens sonically. Like BoA did
Right.
Dreams Come True remix, and she has her own thing going on with her music. SNSD never had that pull.
Yes.
They were not known for being producing and producers or stuff like that. So this is going to be completely curated by SM. And I don't know. I don't know if the call is still there. I think because we haven't seen them in so long and it's such a special moment because it's 15 years, people are excited, but excitement is not going to somehow transmute into a good single,
Yes. Right.
you know? So that's
And-
kind of the,
Yeah. And I'm very curious how the response will be commercially.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I can't really tell what the demand is. Because, for example, there have been a lot of second gen groups that have come back.
Yeah,
You mentioned
yeah.
GOT7 that just came back. 2PM came back last year. After
Yeah.
School reunited on that television show. Tiara did their comeback independently, I believe.
Yeah,
And then, of
yeah.
course, we had 21 at Coachella, which arguably probably got the most buzz, right, out of all those ones I just listed.
Yeah.
But they didn't release new music.
No,
So
that's the difference.
this is a
Yeah.
whole other thing. And so I
Mhm.
think there actually is more pressure on it than people realize. Because if this doesn't
Yeah.
do well, this actually kind of ruins their legacy a little bit.
Yeah, because it's like,
Yeah.
why did you come back at this point? You could have just
Mhm.
left it and been like, he had a good, cute little OGG moment and then left
Yeah.
it. But now it's like you come back and then you kind of soiled it. Just
Yeah,
I'm
so they
hoping it's not
can't
the
do
case.
something that feels inauthentic and that they're trying too hard.
challenge.
That's
Yeah.
the line that they cannot cross, because if they try to seem really young and they come back with like an NMIX type crazy track or
Yeah.
even something that sounds younger, like the Ive
Yeah.
and the Stacey's, is that like if they come back with something that
Yeah.
sounds too young, it just won't work. And so
Yeah.
I think there is some pressure on this, and so I'm very
Totally.
curious what they do, because they got to keep their legacy as the nation's girl group, and if this isn't good, it's not going to look. It's going to be really bad. So
It's going to be kind of embarrassing. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
For lack of a better word. Sorry, Sohyuns. We are Sohyuns ourselves. Or
Yeah.
Sonus.
I will support it. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I'm so happy to see them together because they are the girl group that a lot of people and I think our age got into. It was like, who else was there except 21?
Yeah.
You know, and Wonder Girls. That's all we had. So you kids are so lucky.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, if you are an SM stan or a Seohyun, let us know what you are all hoping or thinking would happen for SNSD comeback. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below or message us at CCTV Pops on all social media. And you can also join us on Patreon. We would love to hear your thoughts and you can help us decide our next episode topics like our lovely CCTV crew members, Lisette, Lily, and Emily. So thank you guys very much for supporting us. And be sure to give us a like, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell. For our listeners, give us a rating and a review on your podcast platform of choice. And until next time, that is Chris.
That's Jan.
And we are CCTV.
It is so good.
Sorry, I thought that was a spider. It was my hair that I cut. Sorry.